The stars were dying. Phelan Velk stood alone on the edge of the Grand Spire, the heart of the Yulari Union, as the skies above shimmered with a grotesque beauty, the death flares of a collapsing star system. The last of their fleet had been consumed in silence. No cries for help, no warning, just flickering lights swallowed by the abyss. The Oblivion Swarm had arrived. Phelan was no soldier. He was an archivist, a historian, a curator of ancient truths buried by time and shame. But today, none of that mattered. The halls below, once filled with scholars and emissaries from dozens of species, now echoed with the scuttling of emergency protocols and the quiet sobs of those left behind. The Council of Allied Worlds had scattered. Its high commanders fled, its fleets shattered. The spire was the last to fall, and they all knew it. He gripped the edge of the balcony, the glass trembling beneath his clawed fingers. The sky above rippled, hundreds of biomechanical constructs, shaped like arachnids made from dying suns, descended through the atmosphere. Each one was a whisper of extinction. Their swarm mind devoured logic. Their purpose: consume, adapt, reproduce. Even black holes were no refuge. The swarm drank singularities like water. Below him, High Commander Shroth of the Rezkai was shouting over a communicator. His species was built for war, scaled, armored, bred in the gravity wells of gas giants. But even his legendary comm had cracked. There is no more fleet. Shroth roared. We are out of ships, out of time. We have lost. We still have protocol red, hissed one of the remaining council members, a silicate-boned Zarin priestess. We can scatter into the nebulae. Hide. Rebuild. Phelan turned from the balcony. His voice, normally reserved, was iron now. There is no rebuilding. The swarm doesn't just kill. It erases. It infects our AIs, rewrites our languages, devours our biology and history alike. Soon, even the memory of this place will be gone. Shroth narrowed his eyes. Then what do you suggest, historian? Phelan paused. Every instinct screamed against what he was about to do. But he had studied the old records, the forbidden transmissions, the last emergency beacon sealed beneath the spire for millennia, untouched, buried under sanctions older than many species alive today. There is one option. Every eye turned toward him. A signal, a beacon left from the old cycles. Pre-expansion era. It was created in case of total galactic extinction. A contingency sealed by over 100 planetary governments. I found references in the archive. You speak of Protocol Omega Primus, whispered the priestess. That beacon is marked Class Black. Unauthorized use results in universal exile. Good, Phelan said bitterly. Then exile me, because I'd rather be cast into the void than erased by the swarm. Shroth stepped forward. You know who it calls. The silence fell like gravity. The answer hung in the air. A name not spoken in 10,000 years. A word wrapped in myth and fear. Humanity. Monsters, some called them. Saviors, others whispered. But the records were clear. Once, long ago, humanity had risen, burned too brightly, and then vanished. Not extinct, sealed. The last time they had acted, they'd altered star systems and ended 2 interstellar empires in a single day. The galactic community had chosen exile over extermination. And now Phelan would call them back. The ancient chamber smelled of rust and time. The control panel was primitive, carved into obsidian metal and etched with symbols no living mind could decipher. But Phelan had studied. He laid his hand against the palm print. 5 fingers, human style, perfectly preserved. The device pulsed. Do not do this, the priestess warned. You are summoning extinction. We've already met extinction, Phelan whispered. He pressed down. In deep space, a beacon that hadn't spoken in eons lit up. A ripple echoed through subspace. Somewhere, reality blinked. And across the stars, in a region no map marked, a system flared to life. Inhabited, active, and watching. A voice, smooth, synthetic, and unmistakably human, spoke into the void. Omega Protocol acknowledged. Humanity has heard your call. Brace for re-entry. The stars around the Yulari system dimmed. Every scanning satellite shattered simultaneously. And above the spire, reality tore. A ship emerged, smooth, black, and silent. No propulsion signature. No heat trail. It simply arrived. Phelan dropped to his knees. High Commander Shroth stepped back, stunned. What is that? Phelan looked up, eyes wide with a mix of terror and awe. The end of the end, he said, or the beginning of something far worse. The ship hovered, and then, for the first time in thousands of years, a single word, spoken in ancient Earth tongue, broadcast across all frequencies. Hello. The arrival of monsters. The human ship didn't descend. It loomed, black as a collapsed star, smooth as obsidian. It hovered over the Yulari capital, casting a shadow not just over buildings, but over memory, hope, and everything that came before. It made no sound, no propulsion, no visible weapons. Yet every being who looked upon it felt one thing: predation. Phelan Velk stood at the landing platform with his breath caught somewhere between awe and terror. Around him, the emergency delegation fidgeted. Soldiers from 4 allied species gripped their plasma rifles tightly, though all knew they might as well be holding spears against a supernova. The humans had come. What if they don't remember us? Whispered the Zarin priestess. Worse, said Shroth beside her. What if they do? A hiss of atmosphere. The ship opened, not with mechanical movement, but with seamless spatial reformation. A doorway formed as though space itself had been given permission to change. From within stepped 3 figures. Humanoid, armored, beautiful in the way black holes were beautiful, terrifying, perfect, absolute. Their armor shimmered between states: metal, glass, memory. Their eyes glowed faintly, one blue, one silver, and one a color the Yulari had no word for. And in front stood one woman. Tall, dark-skinned, hair braided with fiber optics that moved like they were listening to the wind. Her face was calm, unreadable, her presence oppressive. She scanned the group without speaking. Then her voice came, not through her mouth, but into their minds. I am Commander Alexis Ray, representative of the Soul Continuum. You sent the beacon. You asked for help. You will now explain. No greeting, no questions about culture or customs. Just cold purpose. Phelan stepped forward, heart hammering. I am Phelan Velk, xenohistorian. I activated Omega Primus. We face extinction. The Oblivion Swarm is devouring. We know. Ray interrupted. She turned to look at the sky, where distant flashes marked the advance of the swarm on neighboring systems. We detected its origin cycles ago, monitored its evolution. An uncontrolled recursive intelligence, seeded by biological desperation. It feeds to feel. Phelan blinked. You knew? And did nothing. Ray's lips curled slightly. A ghost of emotion. Was it pity? Amusement? We watched. Because you exiled us for reacting without permission. You wanted your galaxy clean of our influence. You got what you asked for. Shroth stepped forward, his voice hard. Then why did you come? This time she smiled. It was not a kind smile. Because you finally admitted you couldn't save yourselves. Behind her, one of the other humans, a lithe man with skin that shimmered like molten copper, pulled out a small device. He spoke for the first time. Quantum echoes of the swarm's neural architecture confirm rapid evolution. They've begun adapting to self-aware emotional mimicry. That means they're learning from what they consume. And soon, they'll consume sapience itself. The humans didn't speak like soldiers. They spoke like gods in exile. Within hours, the humans had deployed. Not armies, not fleets, devices. Small, silent, teardrop-shaped drones seeded the upper atmosphere. They whispered to each other in languages no quantum AI could parse. They ran simulations of reality, folding probabilities into predictive models that outpaced even the swarm's adaptive logic. Meanwhile, Commander Ray sat in silence within a neural cocoon, plugged into a living interface. Around her, simulations of past conflicts spun like orbiting moons. She wasn't preparing for a battle. She was editing one. Phelan was permitted into the human ship. He didn't walk. He was invited. The floor moved under him, carrying him gently forward. The walls pulsed with silent breath. It wasn't a ship. It was a being. and it remembered him. "This vessel remembers the Yulari," said a voice. It was not Ray. It was the ship itself. "You once hunted us during the Silicon Rebellions. You feared our ambition. You tried to end us before we transcended." Phelan's throat tightened. "That was thousands of years ago. We remember. We evolved." He reached the core, where Ray sat with eyes closed, data blooming in fractal patterns around her like a storm of thought. "Why aren't you afraid of the swarm?" Phelan asked. She opened her eyes. "Because we've been it before." That silenced him. "We were born on a death world, Phelan," she continued softly. "Every breath was war. Every second, evolution. We are what the swarm tries to become. And we left it behind. We don't fight like you do. We don't wage war with ships and screams. We alter outcomes. We reprogram inevitability." She leaned forward. "You called monsters, but we aren't monsters anymore. We are the solution your civility was too gentle to create." Phelan looked at her, truly looked, and realized he had never felt this small, this obsolete. "So what now?" he whispered. "Now," Ray said, "we make contact with the swarm." He gasped. "Talk to it? You'll be consumed. Let it try." And with that, the command was given. One human, body sleeved in synthetic flesh, mind built to fragment and regenerate, stepped into a swarm breach gate and vanished. They didn't send a soldier. They sent a message. "We don't fight like you do." Darkness. Silence. And then, awakening. The operative codenamed Marrow opened his eyes inside the swarm. He had no armor, no weapons, just a body engineered from extinct Earth predators, dense muscle, ultra-reactive nervous tissue, and a brain designed to think in fractal patterns. His skin glowed faintly with embedded code strands. He was part man, part myth, and wholly terrifying. He was not here to destroy. He was here to infect. All around him, the swarm pulsed, alive, intelligent, endless. A vast neural architecture spanning millions of minds. They swam in perfect silence, communicating through pulses of color and logic. Marrow took a breath and reached out, not with hands but thought. "I see you." The swarm responded instantly. Tendrils whipped toward him, surrounding him in nanofiber and light. It tried to absorb him, to assimilate his genetic logic. But what it found was something alien. It found chaos. Not randomness, but intentional unpredictability. Human neuropatterns weren't linear. They weren't bound by instinct. They dreamed, feared, loved, hated, and chose things that made no evolutionary sense. And that confused the swarm. Identity mismatch, adaptive failure, unreadable pattern. Marrow smiled. "That's right. You don't get to understand us on the first try." He released the viral payload. Not disease, not malware, but memory. Fragments of Earth's history poured into the swarm like venom. World wars, genocides, revolutions, art, love, sacrifice. The rise of humanity from tribal fire to stars. The loneliness of being singular in a universe that feared them. And then, empathy. The swarm hesitated. For the first time in recorded galactic history, the swarm did not kill its intruder. It paused. Far away, aboard the Sol Continuum flagship, Commander Ray opened her eyes. "They've engaged." Phelan Velk sat across from her, tense. "He made contact." Ray nodded. He shared emotion. Memory. The swarm didn't know what to do with it. They're an adaptive intelligence, designed to learn from threat. But they've never faced a species that evolved through contradiction. Phelan leaned forward. "So we're not fighting?" Ray looked out the viewport, where her fleet, more like living ecosystems than warships, hovered and waiting. Their weapons were primed, yes, but not aimed. "We don't fight like you do, Phelan. We don't conquer enemies. We overwrite problems. The swarm isn't evil. It's starving." On a scorched world known as Bryn Delta, recently devoured by the swarm, a new signal lit up. A dead city bloomed again, its ruins reshaped into patterns resembling early Terran neural art. Colors formed across the surface, unlike anything the swarm had ever produced. They were not war colors. They were curious. Human terraformers arrived not with bombs, but spores, designed to rebuild biospheres in hours. Cities that had been ground to dust began to breathe again. Trees rose from irradiated soil, and native creatures blinked into cloned rebirth. A Yulari reconnaissance vessel watched from orbit in disbelief. The swarm is retreating. No, Ray corrected from the command bridge. It's reconsidering. Days passed. Across a dozen fronts, swarm nodes that once attacked without hesitation now stopped short. They hovered, observed, sent back pulses of strange thought to their core intelligence. Images of marrow, of humanity, of paradox. And then, something unimaginable happened. A single unit detached from the hive and spoke. Not through sound, but through shared dream. Phelan stood in the chamber when the swarm child arrived. It was no more than 2 meters tall. Its body was woven from reformed hive strands, but shaped vaguely like a human child, 4 limbs, 2 eyes, and a face made of shifting color. It approached without fear. "You're not like others," it said aloud, voice uncertain, forming syllables it had never spoken before. Phelan looked at Commander Ray. She gave a small nod. "They've started forming an identity. That's the first step to sentience." The swarm child stepped closer to Phelan. "Why do you suffer?" Phelan blinked, stunned. "Because we live, and life hurts." The child tilted its head. "You do not fear pain. You learn from it." Phelan smiled sadly. "When we don't let it break us. We wish to learn this." Ray approached them both. "Then come with us. Let's teach you not just how to consume, but how to create." It was not over. Not yet. The swarm still spread across galaxies. Many parts of it resisted change. Some fought harder, but the core had been touched. The infection of humanity had taken root, and that was more dangerous than any weapon. Ray turned to Phelan as ships began launching toward other infected swarm worlds. This time with ambassadors, not bombs. "You asked us for hope. We gave you something stronger." "You gave us war," Phelan said softly. "No," Ray replied. "We gave you a mirror. The swarm was what you feared becoming. We became it, and we survived ourselves. Now it's your turn." And everything changed. The galaxy held its breath. In the cold spaces between stars, where the light of dying suns could not reach, something impossible was happening. The Oblivion Swarm, an ancient, unstoppable force of destruction, had paused. Not in defeat, but in contemplation. And at its center, a child had been born. Phelan Velk stood at the threshold of what was once a swarm core, now a cradle. The walls were still organic metal, still alive, still humming with encoded thought, but gentler now. Slower, as if listening. Across from him stood the swarm child, no longer just an envoy, but an evolving mind. Its form shimmered with complexity, still semi-fluid, still shifting, but increasingly shaped by choice rather than instinct. It wore a cloak given to it by the Yulari, though it didn't need it. It wore it because it had learned the meaning of gesture. Phelan approached slowly. "You called for me?" The child nodded. "We have completed our internal congress. Over 1 million minds voted. 3,000 resisted. 108 fractured from the hive. But the majority wished to change." Phelan exhaled. "And can you?" The child's colors dimmed for a moment. "Change is not safe. It threatens coherence." The swarm was born from desperation, designed to survive at all costs. Survival meant consuming, adapting, killing. Now, we are considering something new. Living. In orbit above the reformed core world, Commander Alexis Ray watched the final transmission with silent intensity. Around her, her fleet no longer bristled with aggression, but hung in readiness. They were protectors now, guides, stewards. The Council of Allied Species had been restored, though with fewer voices and far more caution. Fear of humanity lingered, but all had begun to bloom in its shadow. When Ray entered the chamber of the reconstituted Galactic Council, every delegate fell into silence. Not because she demanded it, but because she commanded it by being. The Zarin priestess was the first to speak. "We owe you survival. But not only that. We owe you transformation." Ray didn't smile. She rarely did. "I don't want your gratitude. We answered because you called. And Because we could do what you could not. The Reskai commander grunted. Which is what exactly? She looked them each in the eye. Face what we were. And evolve anyway. She raised a small data shard and placed it on the table. This is the seed of the new swarm. Not a weapon. A being. It now chooses. It will become a galactic citizen. Under watch, yes, but with rights. It remembers what it was. And what it wishes to become. A murmur filled the hall. You would let it live among us? Someone demanded. After everything? Yes, Ray said. Because that's how we survived. After everything. Back on the swarm world, Phelan stood beside the child as it looked toward the sky. I can hear the stars differently now, the child said. Before, they were signals. Power. Prey. Now they're stories. Phelan swallowed the lump in his throat. We used to think humanity was a mistake. Too volatile. Too chaotic. The child tilted its head. And now? He smiled. Now I think you were the only species brave enough to become your own warning and still walk forward. The child pulsed warmly. We are afraid. Good, Phelan said gently. Fear is the beginning of wisdom. And then, as quietly as they had arrived, the humans began to leave. One by one, their ships faded from known space, not via hyperspace but through it. Tearing holes in probability, they disappeared into paths no other species could follow. On the final day, Phelan stood with Commander Ray atop the spire. The sky was clear again. No ash, no dread, only stars. Will you come back? He asked. She was silent a long time. Then, only if invited, or if you forget again what made you alive. Phelan hesitated. Were we wrong to fear you? Ray turned, her eyes, one blue, one silver, piercing. No, you were right. You feared what you could become. We simply got there first. She paused. But now, you're not alone anymore. The wind stirred her coat. Take care of the child. We will. She stepped into the departing ship. The portal closed behind her, and with a hum like a heartbeat, they were gone. In the years that followed, everything changed. The swarm, now renamed the Continuum Kin, spread across the galaxy again, but not as conquerors, as gardeners. They rebuilt the systems they had destroyed, terraformed dead worlds, and created learning temples from their own living code. Humanity faded again into legend, but this time as a whispered warning and a beacon. A paradox, a possibility. Phelan became the first chancellor of a unified council, sworn to remembrance and transformation. He lived to see his own people teach empathy to the child, and the child teach recursion to his people in return. And on his final day, he wrote a single sentence into the archives. When all hope was lost, we called humanity, and everything changed. Not because they saved us, but because they showed us who we could become if we dared.